I'd like to talk about the process. So if a company feels like they've talked to you already, they feel like, yep, this is potentially a good fit, what does the process look like for getting an application in and then, eventually getting to funding? How long does it take and what are the steps?
So the process, as Kevin said, often we're talking to companies well before they apply. So there's sort of the pre-process, but when a company decides they're ready to apply, we have a simple application online. They can fill out some basic information just so we can screen whether or not they're at the point to meet our minimum criteria. When that comes through, typically our first ask, the first thing we will ask for is the previous 18 months of monthly P&L balance sheet. And that's where a lot of them fall off because they can't get us that. And so we won't go any further until we get those. So once we review those, we're just looking for a couple of things to verify the numbers essentially that they reported to us on the application and to kind of get a sense for those revenue streams. Once we've looked at that and decided, okay, it looks like this might be a potential candidate, we'll reach out to them and schedule that first call. And that's generally a getting to know you call with one or two of the partners. It's also a chance for us to make sure that the company understands our model of finance and that it really is a good fit for them. And then if everybody agrees to move forward at that point, we move to pricing. And the reason we do that early on is we don't want to waste any time on our side or on their side if the pricing is not going to work. So typically we will put together a pricing sheet that gives at a high level, the numbers that we think we can offer them. If they want to move forward at that point, then we'll move into diligence. And then I'll let Molly kind of talk about that process.
Yeah. So diligence is more of a deep dive. We have a full diligence list where we're going to ask you for customer contracts. We're going to want to have more details about your gross margin, about any debt that you have on your balance sheet. We're going to want copies of all of that type of stuff. And then we're going to do 1 to 3 calls depending on how much information we need. And how many questions come up. So there's definitely going to be at least 2 calls. We're going to do 1 call, we're going to walk through everything, and then you're probably going to get a second diligence list from us with follow-up items based on that call, and then maybe a third one depending on that. If everything checks out, we all think this looks good, the original pricing holds, i.e. the amount that we thought we could invest in you makes sense, your revenues have held up through this process, we've looked at them, then we will issue a term sheet and then go to documentation for final closing.
What's typically the time frame?
We say 6 to 8 weeks, but honestly, it's up to the company, and it's really on the company to provide us with this information. And generally, I would say the companies are a lot slower than they think they're going to be in terms of providing us with that information.
Nick, we got to come back to something, and Molly said this, and it's the financial statements. But if you're running a company and you now are going for outside capital, think of the position that we're in. We've got to be able to understand the business. We've got to understand the financial statements, and we have to have confidence that you as the entrepreneur understand that. And it's just amazing how many times we get that and we say, we need to see copies of these loan documents that you have. And a month goes by and we haven't received them yet, which does not bode well for the company, right? We're investors. You want to keep us confident in your capabilities. But as you're looking at applying, whether it's bank financing, selling stock, taking money from revenue-based lenders, other forms of capital, think about those people as customers and what are they going to need? And you want to get your act together before you start asking people for money.
And to play off of that point, the entire process is part of diligence. Keep that in mind always. Not just us, any engagement you have with your banker, any engagement you have with an equity investor, everything is part of the diligence process. We are watching and observing and judging you based on all of our interactions. And that's something to keep in mind for companies, because they may not think that they're sending signals, but they are. And we've definitely had some concerns with people because, they couldn't provide financials in a timely manner or whatever. There's lots of stories I can tell.
At the end of the day, all investors are relying upon the management team, right? We're not going to run the company. And that management team has to convince us that they can run that company, that they can carry out their responsibilities, that they can meet the obligations, that they can comply with the documents and the agreements they've made with us. And that is a very soft decision for investors like us to make. But if we lose confidence in the management of the company, we're not going forward. It doesn't make any difference how good the documents are. And we, the three of us, all three of us have to agree that we're going to make this investment. And if one of us begins to say, you know, I really have concerns about the CEO of this company, they're not very responsive, they don't sound like they know what they're doing, they're giving us the runaround, we're going to move on.
I would say not just the three of us, but anybody that you interact with on this Sage Growth Capital team is going to be providing feedback on their experience with you. And that is true of every interaction you have with every financial source out there, right? Like, think of it this way, that like whoever touches you is going to report back, whether that's the receptionist at the front desk of the bank. It has just as much sway over the interaction. If you have a bad interaction with her or him, like somebody's gonna hear about it, and it's going to impact your ability to get that loan. So just think about that. Whoever you talk to does have some sway in that decision-making process.